Imagine it, 3,000 Muslim warriors standing against an army of 200,000 Roman soldiers. A near impossible imbalance, one Muslim for every 70 enemies. One by one, their commanders would fall, and yet not once did the banner of Islam touch the ground. This was not a battle defined by numbers nor by weapons. It was a battle of faith, of resolve, of extraordinary strategy, and of unwavering courage. This is the story of Mutah, a war that didn't just test strength but etched names into history. Zayd ibn Harithah, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Abdullah ibn Rawaha, and Khalid ibn Walid, the sword of Allah. It all began in the warm, serene streets of Medina. The city basked under the sun in peace, but far away in the Roman-controlled region of Sham, a grave injustice was unfolding, one that would stir the soul of every believer. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had sent an envoy, al-Harith ibn Umayr al-Azdi, with a letter of peace and a message of Islam. His destination, the governor of Busra, a vassal of the Eastern Roman Empire. The letter was dignified, calling to faith and goodwill, a peaceful invitation. But what followed was shocking. At the border of Sham, al-Harith was intercepted, not by Roman soldiers directly, but by Shurabil ibn Amr, a local governor under King Ghassan, an ally of the Byzantines. Without trial, discussion, or honor, he executed the prophet's messenger. This act defied not just diplomacy, it defied all codes of humanity. Even in war, messengers are sacred. Their safety is respected across nations and creeds. But this was a cold murder. When the news reached Medina, hearts burned with grief and fury. The prophet, firm yet calm, stood before his companions. This was not a call to revenge, it was a call to justice, a call to defend the dignity of Islam. He ordered an expedition. 3,000 warriors would march to confront a military force that dwarfed them in number and equipment. The Roman forces weren't alone. They were joined by seasoned Christian Arab fighters loyal to the Ghassanid king. Yet the prophet reminded them, numbers do not dictate victory. What matters is sincerity, belief, and the knowledge that Allah is with those who fight for the truth. Then, in an act of divine foresight, he appointed not one, but 3 commanders in succession. If Zayd ibn Harithah is martyred, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib will take his place. If Ja'far falls, then Abdullah ibn Rawaha shall lead. And if all 3 fall, then the Muslims shall appoint one among themselves. The companions listened in silence. The weight of these words was heavy, yet no one turned away. They knew this was more than a battle. It was a stand for the honor of their faith, their prophet, and the sanctity of their message. Weapons were prepared, camels saddled, tears flowed as wives and children bid farewell, and the army began its march toward Mutah, toward a destiny that would shake the ancient world. The desert wind whispered of coming war. The sun cast long shadows over a caravan of courage, and as Medina faded behind them, history stood waiting on the horizon. As the army assembled for departure, the streets of Medina echoed with the sound of marching feet and whispered prayers. Families stood at the edges, watching their fathers, brothers, and sons ride off, not toward conquest, but toward duty. Some cried silently, others waved with trembling hands, knowing deep down they might never see their loved ones again. Among the ranks, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, stood before his companions and named the 3 leaders who would bear the banner of Islam in battle. First was Zayd ibn Harithah, the Prophet's adopted son, beloved and fiercely loyal. He had fought alongside the Prophet in previous battles and was known for his wisdom and fearlessness. The Prophet raised his voice, "Zayd shall be your commander." Zayd stepped forward, calm and unwavering, accepting the command without hesitation. His love for the Prophet and for Allah gave him strength beyond words. Then came Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, cousin of the Prophet and brother of Ali. A noble man of eloquence and bravery, Ja'far had once stood before the Christian king of Abyssinia, boldly declaring the beauty of Islam. The Prophet declared, "If Zayd is martyred, Ja'far will lead." Jafar nodded, eyes burning with purpose. He was not marching for glory, but to defend the honor of the message he had once protected with his voice. Now he would do so with his sword. And lastly, Abdullah ibn Rawahah, a poet, warrior, and devoted believer. His verses had ignited the spirits of his fellow Muslims, and his heart longed for martyrdom. If Jafar falls when the Prophet continued, then Abdullah shall command. In response, Abdullah raised his sword and cried, "O soul, if not today in the service of Allah, then when? Embrace death with..." His words pierced through the hearts of the soldiers, igniting a fire within them. They knew they were fighting not for land, but for something eternal. And then came the Prophet's final instruction. If all three fall, then the Muslims must choose one among themselves. It was a wise command, a reminder that leadership is not in bloodlines, but in capability and unity. With that, the 3,000 chosen warriors marched into the desert. Behind them, Medina wept. Ahead of them, fate awaited. Days later, they arrived in the valley of Mutah. The sun blazed overhead. In the distance, dust rose. Roman cavalry, legions of infantry, and Ghassanid allies stood in vast ranks. Over 200,000 strong. They wore steel and gold. They rode war horses. They carried spears and bows that filled the horizon like a storm. And yet not one Muslim turned back. Zayd ibn Harithah raised the banner high. He led the charge with a cry of, "Allahu Akbar."
Allahu Akbar!
His blade flashed like lightning. He fought like 10 men, cutting down Roman soldiers left and right. But the arrows were many and the spears were sharp. Zayd fell, martyred with the flag still clutched in his hand. Before the banner could touch the earth, Jafar ibn Abi Talib snatched it up. He rushed forward, his sword in one hand, the flag in the other. He struck with fury, his horse galloping through the chaos. But then, a Roman blade severed his right arm. Still, Jafar did not let the banner fall. He grabbed it with his left. Another sword came. His left arm was cut off. Yet with both arms gone, Jafar pressed the banner to his chest, wrapping his body around it until his lifeless form hit the ground. He had given everything. Silence fell for a moment, but only for a moment. Abdullah ibn Rawahah now stepped forward. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from overwhelming anticipation of meeting Allah. He hesitated for a breath, then whispered, "O soul, you will die, whether in bed or on the battlefield. Better to die with honor." He charged in with the passion of a believer, striking down enemy after enemy. His poetry had stirred hearts, but now his sword wrote the final verse of his life. And then he too fell, embracing martyrdom. 3 banners, 3 fallen heroes. The battlefield now stood silent under the blood-stained flag of Islam. The companions hesitated. The enemy pressed harder. A moment of decision had arrived, and from that silence emerged the one who would turn the tide of history. Khalid ibn Walid. The sword of Allah was about to be unsheathed. With 3 commanders martyred, the Muslim army stood at a crossroads. The enemy loomed, 200,000 strong. In that critical moment, the companions quickly chose Khalid ibn Walid, the brilliant general who had only recently embraced Islam. Though new in faith, he was unmatched in strategy. He gripped the flag with fierce determination. "O Muslims," he called, "fear not their numbers. Allah is with us. Stand firm." Khalid immediately restructured the army, reversing flanks, rotating units, confusing the enemy. The Romans believed reinforcements had arrived. Their confidence shook. He led fast, coordinated attacks, striking weak points, and withdrawing before being surrounded. In just one day, 9 swords broke in Khalid's hands from sheer combat. Only a Yemeni blade remained. He wielded it till nightfall. Then came his boldest move, a strategic retreat. He made it appear the Muslims were breaking. The Romans advanced, only to be lured into a trap. Khalid turned and struck their rear with ferocity. Shocked and disoriented, the Romans faltered. By the grace of Allah and Khalid's unmatched skill, the Muslim army escaped destruction. From an impossible battle they returned, bloodied but undefeated. When news reached the Prophet, peace be upon him, he wept for the martyrs. At Jafar's home, He comforted the children and said, "From today, I am your father." And to Khalid, he gave a name history would never forget: the Sword of Allah. The Battle of Mutah wasn't about victory in numbers. It was about honor, sacrifice, and the power of faith that never wavers.